Here's the quick background. Came out of the blue on Wednesday morning that Aaron Rodgers has tested positive for COVID and will miss Sunday's game against the Chiefs. And that was the first clue that something's amiss because technically if you're vaccinated or immunized or vaccinized, you have a sliver.
Yeah.
You have some hope
that
you can get cleared in 4 days because if you can generate 2 negative tests 24 hours apart, you're good to go. There wasn't even that caveat.
No.
And before you know it, came the report from NFL Media, the media conglomerate owned and operated by the NFL, that Aaron Rodgers is not vaccinated. And that means he's out 10 days. From the football side, because there's so many different angles here.
Yeah.
From the football side, Chris, he will miss the game against the Chiefs. So the Simms Bowl that we just discussed yesterday won't happen again.
We're jinxed. It's unbelievable. We had a chance to see it 2 Super Bowls in a row. Of course, the regular season matchup, that was, the Sunday night football game. What was that, 2 years ago? And now, again, I thought we were scotch-free on this one all the way. And we were going to finally get to see it. And, that was the first thing that went through my mind. I just was disappointed that we weren't going to see that. The second thing that went through my mind is when I went, wait, they're calling him out already? And that's when I started to go, wait, does that mean he's not vaccinated? And then I went, wait, does that mean Florio, who's been sending texts about hearing rumors that he hasn't been vaccinated, is actually right? And therefore, you were right as the day went on and we found out.
And I go back to October 5. I went through my texts yesterday. A GM with another team basically said, hey, I heard something weird today, but I trust the person I heard it from. Aaron Rodgers isn't vaccinated. And the first thing I did was pulled up, because we've got 2 different photo services, Getty and USA Today. That's where we get the photos that we attach to our posts at PFT. I found their preseason games, all 3 of their preseason games, right. Texans, Jets, and Bills. And you'll see it, week 1, preseason, on the sidelines, not vaccinated or vaccinized as the case may be, and no mask. No mask.
That was my first thing.
Week 2,
yeah.
Jets,
Go
no
ahead.
mask.
Right.
No mask, okay? And you'll see eventually week 3 at Buffalo, no mask. So when I found those images, my response to the source was, okay, it's a fun rumor, but he's not wearing a mask on the sidelines where he's not in uniform. So he's got to be vaccinated. He's got to be.
Yeah.
He's got to be.
I thought you were full of it, too. In your text that you sent, I was like, well, he's full of it. He's not wearing masks during press conferences or on the sideline, so there's no way the NFL is letting him just skate the rules here.
And as it turns out, the Packers were. Now, I have the full protocols that were applicable, training camp and preseason, and the protocols that were applicable and still are to the regular season. The way I read the preseason protocol, if you are not vaccinated and are not in uniform and thus not an active player,
right,
and you're on the sidelines, thou shalt wear a mask. And I asked the NFL point blank yesterday about the violations committed by Rodgers weeks 1, 2, and 3 of the preseason. Their response was there is no designation for active and inactive in the preseason.
Oh, okay.
That was their response.
Okay.
Well, first of all, before every game in the preseason, the Packers published on their website a list of the players who will not be active. Now, they say won't dress, right? Well, that's the same thing. They're not active players in the game.
Right.
And the policy says everyone on the sideline who isn't fully vaccinated must wear a mask except active players. How can you remotely be considered an active player if you're not wearing a uniform that would allow you to, wait for it, enter the game? You're not an active player. And there are the images from the Packers website for each of the 3 preseason games where he was not an active player. I think this is about, frankly, the NFL covering its own ass. Because it's one thing for the Packers to be responsible for any and all protocol violations that may have happened in their building.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But for the open, obvious, notorious, we know this guy isn't vaccinated, and that's the other side of this. The NFL's known it from the get-go because he tried to get an exemption for homeopathic treatment aimed at boosting his antibodies.
Right.
They know. They know who everyone is who isn't vaccinated. They've got the records. The guys are getting tested every day. There's no secret.
Right.
The unvaccinated are well known to the league and the teams because they have to get tested every single day. So I think the league, frankly, is twisting, is contorting, is being disingenuous with the application of its own policy and protocol because it doesn't want to have to say now, oops, we should have made him wear the mask. We should have disciplined him for not wearing a mask, and we were asleep at the switch. And in a situation like this, Chris, I also think they look for ways to not make a story bigger.
Right. I agree.
Right. So, no big deal. No, nothing to see here. No, continue on. You got enough to talk about. Why are you bothering us trying to create more things to talk about? They didn't say it, but I think that's the takeaway. So, that's why I didn't push it. I freely admit I didn't push it because I figured there's no way they'd let the guy not wear a mask on the sidelines in a preseason game if they're taking this stuff seriously. There's no way he'd be out there not wearing a mask.
Well, there's a part of me that just thinks they skirted the rules and maybe they talked to each other, the league and the Packers, about the situation, because technically he wasn't inactive. He just didn't dress for the game. I mean, that to me seems like, there was some knowledge of the situation there to a degree to not have to deal with that.
But why have – here's the thing, and this is where I'm going to go lawyer on you.
Right. Go ahead.
There is no need for the presence of the word active before players in the preseason COVID protocol. Just say players.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter if you're active or not. Just players.
Yeah.
Everybody who is there doesn't have to wear a mask. And, of course, that makes no sense because if you're not vaccinated and you're not in uniform, there's no reason for you to not be wearing a mask on the sideline. There's every other staff member who's on the sideline has to wear a mask if they're not vaccinated. Right. So why would the players have an exemption? But the presence of the word active to me is the clearest piece of evidence that he should have been wearing a mask on the sideline for the preseason games, and now the league is trying to clean up its own mess, cover its own butt by saying, no. Well, there's no distinction between active and inactive in the preseason. Well, there is, or the word active wouldn't be in your policy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would think, first off, you're going to piss off, sorry, London, the players in the league. I mean, other players who've had to follow those protocols. That's the first thing. I mean, that's just where it's as an ex-player, I would be annoyed. Okay, if let's just say, for example, I'm Carson Wentz, who every time I do see him on the sideline, he is wearing his mask and doing that. And of course, there's other guys we see throughout the league on Sunday doing the same thing. So just from that standpoint alone, the league's got issues there with the NFLPA because it looks like you're playing favorites or like, hey, it's Aaron Rodgers. We're not gonna make a big deal about this and start a whole media campaign about this whole issue. And that to me is the first thing that kind of struck a chord with me. Just thinking about how I would act if I was another player who was in that situation and I've been following the rules, and yet Aaron Rodgers, we know he's the man. He kind of just gets his own set of rules, and that would really bother me.
Well, and think about the broader context here.
Yeah.
He claimed at his initial press conference of training camp that as of just a few days before that moment, he was 50-50 on whether he was even going to play.
Right.
I just wonder how much the league and the team have been tiptoeing around the delicate genius who almost didn't show up and maybe will take his helmet and football and go home if he's pressed too much to wear a mask when he doesn't want to, if they push him too hard, because he believes apparently that his homeopathic treatment works, so he shouldn't have to be vaccinated. And I can't wait to hear his next press conference or appearance with Pat McAfee, the only two times we ever hear from him, how he explains this. And folks yesterday were trying very hard to equate immunized with vaccinated. No. I mean, he This is one of the curses of being smart. You're not going to get the maybe he was confused.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the
No
he just
doubt.
didn't really understand.
He knew.
He's smart enough to know what he was saying.
Right.
He was lying. He was lying.
Yeah,
And I'm not going to
period.
tiptoe around it. He was lying.
He was.
He
Listen,
was
there's no other
deliberately
way to say
creating
it.
the false impression that he was vaccinated. Are
Right.
you vaccinated? Yeah, I've been immunized. Yeah, I've been immunized.
Very lawyer
And I'm
of
not going to
him.
judge.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge. No, and it's not even lawyer, because when he says right after that, we've got some guys who aren't vaccinated and I'm not going to judge them. That is the cherry on top of the icing on top of the cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake when he says that. He's creating the clear false impression that he's vaccinated. And I think that regardless of whether he was wearing a mask in the weight room, in the meeting rooms, and who knows, the team is required to create and preserve video of everything in the facility, and the NFL has the right to look at it.
Yeah.
The team is the front line when it comes to enforcing the rules, though.
Right.
But let's say he's complied anytime that there are no reporters who are in a position to see him. I think he just decided, I'm not wearing a mask when I'm in the interview room in the facility, and by rule, and the league won't come out and say this. It's so weird. The simple yes or no question, Shereen Williams asked the league yesterday, yes or no, is he required to wear a mask in the interview room in the team facility when others are present? And they referred us to the policy. Well, when you look at the policy, you read the policy, you're required to wear a mask every time you're in the facility. Anytime you're in the facility, if you're not vaccinated, you're not wearing a mask. Ipso facto, he's violating, but they won't come out and say it. I just think that I think that they don't want him to quit. And I'm curious, Chris, and it's flashed through my mind a few times since yesterday. Is he just going to say, you know what? I don't need this. I don't need this. I'm not getting vaccinated. I'm not wearing a mask. I don't believe in it. And if you're going to make me do it, I'm just not playing football. I'm out. See you. Have fun with your game. Have fun with Jordan Love. Have fun without me boosting the ratings of your games. I'm done.
Bye. See you later. I mean, hey, listen, we all watched football when Peyton Manning retired. Okay, I mean, I don't know. I mean, other greats have retired. We watch it. Peyton Manning is polarizing, and people love to watch him as much as anybody I ever knew. The league still went on. The ratings were still awesome. So, I mean, from that standpoint, I mean, if that was the case, I'd be like, well, NFL, then just say see you later. Like, what? I mean, you can't start breaking rules for certain players. It's bad precedence. I don't know any other way to say it. I'm shocked that the league has kind of let it go this far. I am. But I also think that the league was, a little bit like we've seen in other conversations, for lack of a better way to say it, just chicken to kind of like make a firestorm out of this issue, because it's a little bit of a firestorm issue throughout our whole country. So they probably felt like, it's like almost semi-political. Not semi, I guess it is political now, to where, I think that's, to me, the way it looks, on the outside. They were just like, whoa, this is a can of worms, and it's Aaron Rodgers, and he's smart, and, man, the country is somewhat divided on this subject as is. And there's a part of me that thinks that's the issue. But, like, here's the other thing, Mike, that just, like, to me, again, a little going back to the football standpoint, because that's how my brain works. We went through a whole offseason of a guy who was mad that the team wasn't doing everything they could do to get to the Super Bowl. They couldn't do everything they could. And then, again, I was a guy sitting here that, like, I wasn't happy to get the vaccine, but I did it for the betterment of mankind, my fellow citizens. I didn't want to have that on my conscience of, like, guilt of, like, oh, I might have it and give it to somebody and they get sick and die. I didn't want to deal with that. And then I wanted
And you couldn't work.
Right.
And you couldn't work.
And then I didn't want to have my own personal, I want my own personal, competitiveness in my job and be the best I can for my job and my family. I mean, those are the two things that made me get the vaccine. And that, from that standpoint alone, I just can't believe we're talking about this with Aaron Rodgers, where everything is riding on one more Super Bowl. One more. He hasn't gotten there. And now they're going on the road to the Chiefs. And then, like you wrote in your article yesterday, he's not going to be able to practice till the day before they play Seattle the next week, who, of course, is going to be a desperate football team, and Russell Wilson might be back. If this ends up costing Green Bay the #1 seed in the NFC playoffs, I mean, he's never going to hear the end of it for the rest of his life. It's going to be attached to him forever, and it's going to be a part of his legacy if this happens. And that's where I just can't believe he rolled the dice on this subject. That's where I'm shocked.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.